Lovely. Once again, a very good morning to all of you who've joined today's webinar. Thank you so much for having taken the time. This is a webinar which is a part of the Manage Engine's global webinar series on identity and access management. My name is Jay. I'm going to be the presenter for the day. So through today's session, we are going to be talking about something very fundamental and at the same time very, very critical to an organization. What usually gets overlooked, but what needs a high priority of detection and follow up on that specific case. So we're talking about insider threats through today's webinar. I'm also going to be giving you pointers on how to detect insider threats, what sort of signs to look for when we are talking about insider threats, and how do you effectively mitigate a potential insider threat, or how do you retaliate when something of that sort happens. All right. For those who want a copy of the webinar, that's going to be available. All you have to do is leave your email ID towards the end of the session, and I'd be able to send you over the video and the presentation deck as well. So that being said, let's quickly get into the topic. When it comes to fraud prevention especially, many organizations tend to overlook the idea of insider threats. It could be both malicious or it could be probably accidental. Many a times insider threats aren't accidental but malicious. So that being the case, administrators are very much equipped with tools. I'd say probably your SIM solution that can detect a potential data breach or a potential external attack and give you real-time updates on what's going wrong. But when it comes to Office 365, who would expect a security outage that's happening from the inside? Not many of us, right? In fact, we'd be absolutely certain about the fact that our users are going to not try to do anything crazy. But on the contrary, we've got statistics that prove otherwise. There is a huge shift in how the attack landscape is evolving, and much to our concern, it is essentially the insiders who cause majority of the attacks in the organization, mostly knowingly and few accidentally. We still have employees writing their passwords on a piece of sticky note and sticking them right on top of their desktop. How are we going to save our organization with probably advanced machine learning and user behavior analytics and things like that? So it fundamentally starts with having practices in place that are going to help you ascertain the fact that there's no potential loophole that an attacker, either with a malicious intent or someone unknowingly, does something wrong to your organization. So we'll dissect how insider activities work. We'll understand what could potentially lead to a threat. We'll also then go forward talking about what kind of attacks do insiders pull off, and what signs you need to look for when you're talking about insider threats. And finally, I'll give you 5 easy tips that you can implement right away when you know something's gone wrong. So I'll be giving you real-time insights, data, numbers. Please do pay close attention. I'll also be giving you action items to go back and perform. And towards the end of the session, I'm also going to be sharing a couple of ebooks that we have put together to help you secure your Office 365 better. To start off with, we'll understand what insider threats are. So insiders are not basically employees working in your organizations. With the growing roles of accidental insider and fraud schemes, it's high time that we understand and we stand up to an insider threat by probably having a program to stop a malicious intent. That is pretty much the idea. So when it comes to critical assets in your organization, it's probably going to be the people, the most important asset. It could be information, which again is vital to your organization now that there are so many compliance regulations that are in place that require you to secure your information, to track your information, to audit it, and ensure that you have a system in place that tells you if any probable personally identifiable information goes out of the system. Quite a lot around information, and obviously facilities are also quite an important critical asset. Many a times what happens is a potential individual who has authorized access is the one who turns out to be the one causing all the losses. So insiders couple of times turn out with malicious intent, and it could basically be because of quite a few reasons. There could be regular employees in the organization who are disgruntled with how the system works, so they go on and exp- what how do I call it? They go on and transfer data from inside the organization to someone outside the organization, or probably have some confidential information of the organization displayed on the internet, have it out for the public. So that is something that you would need to check every now and then. So how do you do it, especially when it's Office 365, when all of it is online? How are you going to stop anything of that sort from happening? We would not want users to do something of that sort. But the problem is, when it comes to systems that are on the cloud, the variables that are involved are quite exhaustive and unpredictable as well. So if you're talking about a identity access management system like Active Directory, an on-premise system essentially, you'd be able to be in complete control of the entire file integrity. You would have systems to tell you who's accessing what, what's happening, is there any suspicious access, is there any escalation of privilege, and all of that. But what about cloud? Do we have the know-how that is essential to prevent all of this? So it all starts with people with privileged access, and them being probably disgruntled or have a bad motive. And at times, you should also consider the fact that bringing in new employees, or probably a temporary workforce, or contract employees, or service providers, or giving them access to your network, can at times turn out to be the problem. So the first thing that an outsider would try to do is probably have a backdoor entry or leave a backdoor entry when they get the chance. So they try to get hold of some vital information that could be useful for their business, or it could even bring your business down. We need to take that into consideration. The kind of information that gets lost usually is confidential information, which is very obvious. It could be financials, it could be data pertaining to your customers. Probably that's a very big problem. And the worst one would be employee data, details of bank accounts, details of credit card, details like social security number, all that gets lost. And this is just one side of things to how information gets lost. What about organization that deals with healthcare? What about health records of people? That again is a very, very big problem. In fact, much to my surprise, I recently stumbled upon an article and understood that the personally identifiable information is details like your name, your telephone number, your email ID, and other basic details get sold for about $2-3 in the black market, or the dark web as they call it. But your health record, the one that has your details pertaining to your insurance, insurer, what medical history you have, and all that, gets sold up to $50 per user record on the dark web. So how disturbing is that? So there are quite a lot of motivation an attacker would have, be it insider or an external attacker. They have a lot of motivation because there's a lot of money associated with it. We need to be very, very sure that all intellectual property in the organization, like trade secrets or probably product design statements, all of them are, number one, secured, and number two, monitored and tracked for access at every point in time. So you will need to have processes that intimate you when someone's trying to access a specific intellectual property. You will need to have, in fact, workflows, or I would say an approval mechanism. If it's highly confidential and critical, someone needs to give you approval to access data. That can very much be done. And privileged account information like credentials and passwords should at no point in time be saved as plain text. So I'll be walking you through quite a few options to stop all of this and ensure that all best practices required are in place. For that, we'll start off by understanding what essentially would an insider do. It's usually want to fraud the organization, steal some important customer data, and this usually happens during the normal working hours because no one is really going to notice. They are already inside the organization, they have access to customer data, they very much can copy it to a flash drive or probably upload it to their cloud because there's no system to monitor all of that. So again, there's a problem. They're already pre-authorized to do all of this, and the thing is, you would not really be having a system to monitor all of this, and fraud becomes absolutely easy. So this doesn't also require quite a lot of technical knowledge. It could very much be transferred. So that's one thing. IT sabotage is a problem of another level. So they try to get access to your system. They probably did not have access earlier, but then somehow sneaked in and got some access or added themselves to some administrator group, and now they want to bring the system down, or probably install a potentially malicious system or a malware in the system and gain access. So when this happens, they are mostly not at work, and they're mostly not at work and operate this whole scam probably in the middle of the night when it's non-business hours, when nobody would probably be looking. That's exactly when they'd pull an IT sabotage, where they'd have a malicious program being installed in the network, or get the system down, or crash it, or cause a denial of service, basically to hinder business, basically to cause damage to the reputation, and quite a lot. And the last one is going to be theft of intellectual property. It usually happens when it's time for an employee to leave. So I am recruited by a competitor, I have a job offer, I have a 30-day notice period to leave the organization. So what I also do have is access to all corporate data. Why not have a provision to send across all corporate data in real time to a personal email ID even after I leave my organization? Okay, that's something that I can't digest. That's something that I would not want an environment to be open to or vulnerable to. So we would need processes that check if there are any unnecessary access or modifications to mailbox settings, or if there are any forwardings that are set to personal email accounts, or the ones that are not a part of the domain. We will need that as well. And for this, again, they'll need to have a bit of technical expertise. What they do is probably try and share trade secrets, and most of the times when they're doing it, they're authorized, and this can very much happen during normal working hours, because nobody is going to check for the changes that are happening right here. So you'd need to have an upper hand basically by understanding attackers mindset. So that's where it all starts. So for you to detect, easy things that you can probably look into is access during non-working hours, beyond business hours, access or modification of data for which they are not supposed to be messing with. You need to have a provision to track that. And the last one is a very useful functionality from Office 365, which is mailbox content search. So you have certain key words, you have certain intellectual you have a patent. Let's say you have a patent, so you would not want any of that document being attached or shared either expectedly or unexpectedly. So what you could probably do is set the mailbox content search to work your way, let you know if there's something of that sort, data containing personal information or patent or corporate identity or some intellectual property being shared, attached, or copied. You'd get an immediate notification if it's happening over the Office 365 mailing system. We'd be looking into these three aspects. To start with, we will take a look at a report, a straight out of the box report that is going to give you access to log on activity that's happening during non-business hours. So you will be able to audit such activity. I've got about 4 or 5 reports around auditing log on activity. I also have real-time reports, like quite a lot on business hours and non-business hours and what exactly they're trying to pull off right here. I'm going to take a quick second and show you that specific report. So what we have right here is a report for activities during non-business hours. Here you go. I've got an out-of-the-box report that is going to tell me and give me insights into all those users who are accessing from a specific IP or from a specific device during non-business hours. It gives me a list of successful logons. It gives me a list of failed logons. And this is going to be phenomenally helpful when I'm trying to go on and perform a root cause analysis to check if someone's intruding into my data at the wrong point in time. So I can start off with a very simple report by checking who's logging in beyond business hours. A straightforward report that's quite helpful. The next one is going to be unauthorized modification of data. So I can have out-of-the-box reports that give me insights into how my OneDrive is being handled. Let's say there's important corporate data, maybe patent documents in my OneDrive, and there are a specific set of users who should be accessing it. That's okay. I'm a user who has access to the data, but then I don't usually access it many a times because that doesn't really pertain to me. But all of a sudden one day I access the file 100 times. That's a deviation in my usual behavior. Then I probably perform some modification on it, on some critical aspect of the file. That again is a deviation of behavior. I've probably copied it to a USB flash drive, or I've uploaded it to the cloud. I would need processes. Basically the admin would need processes and systems to notify when anything of this sort happens, especially when this is happening with an external user. You would need to be all the more vigilant and all the more careful and try and stop this. So we're talking about unauthorized modification of data and having a provision to keep tab on all of that and get real-time alerts when something's going wrong. You'd get a mail, you'd get a push notification, you get a text notification. You can even configure an alarm to go on your phone when something of this sort happens. You'd get notified. The next one is the content search functionality that comes with Office 365. This is already available for you. You can go on, configure the content search, key in those important keywords that you don't want your users to be sharing over an email. It could be on the subject, it could be on the body. You would get notified. And in fact, you could do a search to check if someone's already done it. You could do it two-way. But what we've observed is this functionality is quite restricted and it's rudimentary in terms of its functionality and the reach that it's got. So what we've done is we've kind of topped it up with a few more functionalities from Manage Engine. We call it the Advanced Office 365 Mailbox Content Search. We've included a provision for having a condition-based search. So you can have predefined conditions. You can check for specific set of users, especially let's say users pertaining to an administrative group. You can very much keep track of them and mails that are being sent and received and check for any specific keywords. Essentially, passwords and credentials should not be shared over email. That's something that you can look into. And again, you can train the system to work in your favor with the pattern-based search that's available. When someone's trying to attach a file with PII, or when someone's trying to attach a file that's got credit card information, let's say, or when someone's trying to attach a file that has information pertaining to an organization's confidential data that has a specific pattern, maybe numbers, maybe algorithms, maybe code, maybe quite a lot of different permutations and combinations that are available on which you can train the solution to look into. And when that specific word or pattern or string gets used, or something similar to that also gets used in an email or appears in an email in the subject or in the body, you get an instant notification. What's best is the functionality that lets you automate the whole thing, so you can schedule it to run probably every half an hour or probably once in a day if you trust your users, and then get notified if there's some anomalous not expected activity going on. So this is very simple, this is very straightforward, but when it has the functionality to be automated and when it has the functionality to be pattern based, it becomes all the more simple for organizations to go on and pinpoint of something from where it all started. Root cause analysis is going to be quite easy in this specific format. So how do you tackle all this in the first place? You get the privileged management done right. That's the whole deal. So the right users need right accesses. You necessarily need to have an user activity monitoring solution in place, a UAM. That's what we say. A UAM to check if it's a suspicious event or a normal activity. You would need to also look into these signs of compromise. Let's say one common sign of compromise is the user being continuously locked out of their account, or them receiving a mail for a password reset. So these are essentially how it starts. And again, when we're talking about wow, let me get to this case. I've got a cool question from Jason. As a school, we would like to be able to see if there are files containing malicious content. Yes, that is a wonderful case. You'd very much be able to do that, Jason. Quickly getting back to the topic that we were discussing a while back, this is quite helpful for you to prevent a cyberbullying case. the product would be able to look into hate words or slander terms in the body of the mail, or probably other collaboration applications that the students are using. Since it's Office 365, many education institutions are using it, and the product can very much help you stop cyberbullying or reduce the extent of cyberbullying. Thank you so much for the question, Jason. There are quite a lot of cases, not necessarily at enterprise level, but also even at a school, at an educational institution. You might as well use this. Thanks for the question. So going forward, we're talking about cases of account compromise. Here we're talking about a specific set of things that you can look out for. If there is any unusual change in the name of the user, probably the password gets changed, or there's a request for password changing, or another critical thing that you should be looking out for is changing in the mail forwarding rules. So if there is anything suspicious happening in the mail forwarding rules, any activity that points to the user's mail forwarding including an external email ID, that's something that you should note. You should have your users educated, basically tell them what signs to look for, and then go on and immediately act upon them. So these are basic signs. Unusual account logins from a different IP address. So in fact, we are working on a current module called the User Behavior Analytics module, and this module is going to essentially help you administrators to use a machine learning powered algorithm to check how a user interacts with your Office 365 target system. So when a user deviates from the existing behavior, it could be basically because they are operating from a different geography. That could be a case. It could be because they are operating from a device that is not registered in your system. It could basically be because of IP address that has a bad reputation score. So we've got quite a few parameters against which we peg a user every single time when they are logging in. And when the risk profile that we drew offshoots the baseline, you get a notification, and you probably would need to authenticate yourself once more through the multi-factor authentication algorithm that will kick in. So we are talking about an intelligent system to help you secure your Office 365 environment, and in this case it's going to be a lot more sensible, preventing any possible false positives coming in. Many a times the problem is you have a system that is condition based. All it does is something is violating the condition, it just keeps you giving out false positives. But here what we're talking about is an intelligent system that drafts a user behavior and profiles every single user's action based on historical data, and then it goes on to give you an alert. So this is a lot more informed decision that we're talking about. In fact, in this case, account logins, there could be quite a few employees who are traveling warrior who are on the go, or remote employees, or belong to the sales department, and they're required to go on site, to go to a different geographical location. So at that point in time, the system already knows that they have a set pattern or a set trend of them traveling, and you don't really get a false positive at that point in time. So we're talking about two things: making it more usable for the users, and at the same time keeping it secure for the organization. So that's one thing that you can look into. And the next one is the altered email settings. So if there are any additional changes to the inbox or outbox forwarding rules, that you should be noting. If there are any unauthorized access from devices that are not there in your list of devices that are attached to your system, you should get notified, and you should have a process, and that's going to be available. So we call it device footprinting. So if there's any deviation, you'd get notified there as well. And most of the times this is the easiest pointer to find. If someone gets this message saying that they are locked out of the account quite frequently, that means someone else is trying to access their account. Probably they failed multiple times with a bad login and the account got locked out. So that's one sign that you could look out for. But what could be all the more better is to have a dashboard. It's called the Secure Score dashboard. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share the link to you on chat right now. This is quite an effective dashboard for you to make use of, essentially, when you're trying to evaluate your existing security in your organization. The score is absolutely free. You can derive your own score. So I'm going to quickly ask you to access this link. I'm pretty sure you're connected to your Office 365 right now. Quickly access this dashboard and tell me what is your score. I have a pathetic score. My score is 51, but I'll tell you why and how to increase the score in a while. Let's see who's got the highest score today. Okay, we've got Steve who's got 128. That's good. That's good. That's a good start. Uh, Raj says he's got a 215. Okay, that's the highest so far. What's your secure score? Let's see who's got the highest secure score. The link is absolutely available for everybody to access. If you are already on your Office 365 setup, this is from Microsoft and you'd be able to use it. If you've not used it before, please do right now and tell me your secure score. Let's go about making your secure score better. All right, Mark has the highest so far. He says he's got a 312. Wow, that is a huge leap from the previous people. I mean, that's a good score, Mark. I think Mark stands to be the clear winner right now. But what about me? I have a pathetic score, and why is that? There are quite a lot of actions that are pending from my side. I will need to do a lot more to increase my secure score. So this dashboard gives me a real-time see-through into how my organization is structured with respect to basic things. It could be something as simple as enabling multi-factor authentication. It could be something as simple as turning on auditing. It could be something as simple as having password hash sync in place. Quite a lot. When you're in a hybrid environment, you'd want to consider password hash. Jeff says he's got 83. No problem, Jeff. This is going to be quite easy and straightforward. What you could do is you could get into this dashboard. All right. You have very easy action items to do. It would take you probably 1 day's time to do all these action items or enable most of them. It's going to be very easy, and for it to reflect, it takes about 24 hours, and you'd be having a very clear-cut picture as to where you currently stand and how you've improved. In fact, Microsoft goes on to give you how you're securing your organization by enabling that specific requirement and what compliance requirements are you meeting by doing so. This is exactly what someone would want. It makes it easy for every user. Blocking jailbroken devices or rooted mobile devices, so they could be potential entrance or entry points for an attacker. A jailbroken device or a rooted mobile device, they have kernel control, and that could possibly be the reason of a potential malware entry, or probably they went on to install some APK file on their Android device that was rooted, and that got a malware spreading across the organization. Lots and lots of cases. Very easy to do this. Go for it. Is figure out what's your secure score, and as a practice, come back to your secure score dashboard once in a month, assess your existing standard, check if there are any new action items that you can do, and it's quite easy to do, and keep improving your secure score. And then after a point, once you have like a really cool secure score, you can be very sure that your organization's Office 365 is a lot more secure. So why exactly are we discussing this? We'd want to keep a potential insider or probably someone who had a malicious instance on check. And number two, we do not want any user to accidentally cause damage to the organization. Someone has a rooted device, you do not know. That could be the reason for your entire network coming down. Would you want that? Not necessary. Simple is to use the secure score dashboard. Going beyond, I've given you ways to detect, I've given you ways to secure your organization. Now the last step is going to be, just in case if something bad went down, how do you react to it? How do you retaliate? How do you minimize the damage? Damage control is what we are going to be talking about right now, and I have 5 points for you. We'll start off with something as simple as password resets. Go on and do an organizational wide password reset. All right, and in fact, I'd ask you to set random passwords for users and have them notified personally. Do that. It's going to be quite an effort, but if you do it through the tool, it's going to be quite easy. Select all the users, have them notified on their mobile phones with their new password. You could do that, or have them personally email. You could do that as well. And random passwords are going to help you stop compromised accounts. So that's something that is very fundamental but can help you big time. And again, enabling multi-factor authentication. If you remember, on the secure score dashboard, enabling multi-factor authentication was an action item. Please do that. Enforcing multi-factor authentication on users is going to be quite easy, and in fact, Microsoft makes it very, very easy for you to enable MFA. You can have the Microsoft Authenticator app installed on your user's device. It works with Touch ID, it works with face recognition. How easy could it get? This is quite simple. It's not going to be complicated for the users as well, and they not have a problem doing this. So please go on and reset passwords and enable multi-factor authentication as the first aid measure. All right. The next one is to quickly check if there are any unnecessary delegations on the mailbox. That's something that an insider would be doing if they want to exfiltrate data, if they want to do an espionage. This is what they do. Do check for any malicious delegations, check for permissions, and the tool lets you quickly go through all delegations, and also from the report, from the same dashboard, you'd be able to modify permissions if there are any unnecessary permissions right there. All right, the next one is to remove suspicious mail forwardings. That you could do very easily. You can check if there are any external forwarding addresses. The tool has a dedicated report to check if there are any external forwarding addresses. That's quite a useful functionality. That's most of the time the reason for data being lost. And when an insider is planning to leave the organization, they'd set forwarding to their personal email address. That you could very much stop. So there are quite a lot of extensive reports that come pre-built into the product, and one such report is mailboxes with external mail forwarding. I'm going to show you the dashboard right here. Here you go. I have a mailbox with external email forwarding report, and it gives me all those users with external forwarding set, and it works across domains. Since the tool is capable of managing multiple tenants and multiple domains, it is going to be effective for you to get all of those information under one single console. Straightforward. That's what we're talking about. See, just a second. Just a second, getting back to the presentation. So we were talking about removing any suspicious mail forwarding rules that are set. Just 1 second. A PowerPoint deck hung. All right, perfect. Here you go. The next one is going to be a provision to go beyond the native limitation. What is again the native limitation? A quick question for you. How long can your Office 365 save your audit logs? That's a quick question for you. How long by default does your Microsoft Office 365 save your audit logs? Let's see who gets the answer right. Mario says it's 120 days. That's almost close. That's almost close. Jason says it's 90 days. Okay, 90 days. Does anybody have another answer? Mario says it's 120 days. It's almost close. Jason says it's 90 days, and the answer is 90 days. Jason got it right. So 3 months of audit logs, is that going to be good enough? Is your auditor going to be happy with that data, or will you even be able to do any proper root cause analysis if an attack went down? Because many a times for an organization to detect that they underwent an attack, it takes up to 4-5 months. After the damage is made, coming back and checking to have no audit data is not something that is appreciated. So what you could do is you could make use of the tool and extend it however long you want. Very simple, extend it for a year. In fact, I'd recommend doing it for 13 months. That helps in most of the auditing cycles. Go on, have it for 500 days. That's quite a useful bit of audit logs being archived, and the best part is the whole thing gets archived, it gets password protected, and also you could very well get into the system and check anytime for any critical activity going on around the account, or derive any insights from the audit logs that are available, or get reports, because the product lets you do that. Audit logs, check for reports, exhaustive set of reports around compliance, around security, around OneDrive licensing, quite a lot that you could use of, and set real-time alerts for any changes that are happening. So if there is any activity happening on your Azure Active Directory, like some admin level role changes or some group membership modification happens, any privilege escalation essentially gets reported and alerted right here. It tells you based on the level of criticality. You would get hold of any intruder trying to access your file and folder system, or any insider trying to unnecessarily modify any data. So someone deleted an important file intending to disrupt business, you'd get a notification right here. You got all of that right here. So what I would recommend you to do is to get back to your environments. Start off with the secure score dashboard. That's the easiest one to do. Ensure that you have all these items on the checklist in place, and get back to me and tell me how your secure score improved. And I'd like to be by your side when you do this fight, because we have this solution that essentially empowers administrators, and we'd like to interact with you to understand what specific challenges that you're facing and see if we could possibly help you. Thank you so much for your time. You guys have been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for all the questions and interaction. I'm going to be sticking around for another 5 more minutes to take if you have any specific questions. In case you want a copy of today's webinar, that is also going to be absolutely possible. Just drop me a message right now with your email address, and do take care. You guys have a great rest of the day. My name is Jay, your presenter for the day. Goodbye.